Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We begin with late breaking news out of Washington. The Senate has passed the bipartisan Safer Communities Act that was introduced after several mass shootings, including Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. The bill includes enhanced background checks and millions of dollars in funding for states to administer red flag laws. Tonight, passing 65 to 33.
Today's
It's
date,
the first major piece of gun legislation to pass
June
in Congress
24th,
in nearly 3 decades. Now heads to the
2022.
House. Earlier today, also in the nation's capital, the Supreme Court handing down a major victory for gun rights advocates that some say could make communities less safe, striking down a century-old New York law that limited who could legally carry a concealed weapon. Now, some cities across the country are bracing for the impact. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault, the report for our ongoing series, Guns in America.
I would wake up crying because I was having a dream every single night that the shooting happened over and over and over again.
Zanetta Everhart knows firsthand the damage a gun can do. She sees it every day in her son. 21-year-old Zaire was one of only 3 people who survived May's mass shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York. But he'll have shrapnel in his body for the rest of his life.
That's what made it the most shocking. My son was at work doing what 21-year-olds do on Saturday mornings.
That shooting launched Everhart on a crusade for stricter gun laws, testifying on Capitol Hill earlier this month.
I continuously hear after every mass shooting that this is not who we are as Americans and as a nation. Hear me clearly. This is exactly who we are.
But just weeks later, the latest decision on gun control is setting back her fight. Today, the Supreme Court striking down a 100-year-old New York gun law, now making it easier to carry a concealed handgun. Leading up to this Supreme Court news, did you think that there was momentum for your cause?
Absolutely.
How do you feel now?
I feel disgusted. I'm disgusted. What are we doing in this country?
In a 6-3 ruling, the justices determined New York could no longer require people to show a special need for self-protection in order to carry a concealed gun outside their home. That the law violated the Second Amendment. Conservative judges were concerned it gave local officials too much discretion.
About 80 million Americans live in states that until today had a law basically saying if you wanted to carry a gun, you needed to have some good reason to do it. And in all of those states, the Supreme Court has said those laws are no longer constitutional.
The ruling seemingly flies in the face of national opinion. A new poll shows 66% of Americans support stricter gun laws.
So I think we will almost certainly see an increase in the number of guns in circulation, including on the streets of very densely populated cities.
In his dissent, Justice Stephen Breyer mentions the nearly 300 American mass shootings that have already occurred this year, saying the court's decision does not consider the potentially deadly consequences and that it burdens states' efforts in preventing gun violence and protecting the safety of its citizens. But Justice Samuel Alito firing back, writing, "How does the dissent account for the fact that one of the mass shootings near the top of its list took place in Buffalo? The New York law at issue in this case obviously did not stop that perpetrator."
We need gun regulation. Point blank, period. A handgun still can kill people. It can still kill a lot of people.
New York state legislators will now have to start from scratch to determine where concealed carry is allowed, and officials are already beginning to review the permitting process.
We do not need people entering our subways, our restaurants, our movie theaters with concealed weapons. We don't need more guns on our streets.
But for New Yorker Cheryl Apple, today's ruling is what she hoped for.
That's a great shot.
Get it.
The mother of 5 runs a small business near Albany and says she recently began fearing for her life.
The uptick in violence has just been astronomical. The gun violence. I just felt that I needed to be able to protect myself.
She applied for an unrestricted license to carry her 9mm pistol almost anywhere she goes.
Here we go. Move.
A 10-month-long process that included a background check, safety seminar, and an interview with a judge.
You know, I travel to and from my job at night, sometimes late, sometimes early in the morning, and that I just felt that it would make me feel safe. I feel confident with my weapon. I don't think the Cheryls are the one out there that are hurting people and committing the crimes and being unsafe with their guns.
She says she doesn't worry about accidentally shooting the wrong person.
I would have before I took this class, but now I don't, not at all.
The Second Amendment does not end at your doorstep.
Tom King's group, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, were plaintiffs in the case.
We are not the problem. The problem is the criminals and the wrongdoers in the state. And the politicians have to learn that.
For me personally and emotionally, I think that I was kind of already mentally preparing myself for this decision, knowing the way that this court has been packed by Donald Trump. I wasn't that surprised. I'm just disappointed.
David Hogg was a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, when a gunman opened fire and killed 17 students, injuring 17 others in 2018. It spurred Hogg into activism, co-founding March for Our Lives, a youth-led movement. For children ages 1 to 19, gun injuries are now the leading cause of death.
This decision will get kids killed. It's going to get people killed. And it only serves to further deregulate our already underregulated militia and to further endanger the domestic tranquility that unfortunately we have so little of right now in our country.
Hogg says he believes this ruling will make the streets even more dangerous. FBI data shows handguns were used in the majority of gun homicides in the U.S.
I think this decision is going to make it easier for bad guys with guns to get guns in the first place.
Does any part of you feel concerned that now this is your future?
I'm going to sit at that table until I keel over because my son has pieces of a bullet in his back, and that will be there for the rest of his life. So that means that will be there for the rest of my life. So that means that I'm going to always have something to say about it. Always. I'm never going to stop talking about it.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. A few questions for you this evening. Gun violence is plaguing cities everywhere. Gun arrests in New York City are at a 28-year high. Are New Yorkers now less safe after today's ruling?
So true. And when you think about this decision was supposedly rooted in our historical past connection with guns, but it did not take into account the reality of today. Americans and New Yorkers are less safe based on this decision by the Supreme Court.
You're the mayor of the most populous city in the country, but 80 million Americans live in states that are impacted by today's ruling. Do you worry
Yes.
that gun violence will go up all over America now as a result of it?
We had one of the most stringent gun permit and carry laws in the country, and now this has completely disrupted our pursuit to ensure our streets are safe, and it's taken away the progress that we have made. 3,000 guns my officers have removed from the streets, and now we have to go after this pursuit of what the Supreme Court has put in place.
In his opinion today, Justice Brett Kavanaugh stated, quote, "Why isn't it good enough to say I live in a violent area and I want to be able to defend myself?" What's your reaction to that statement?
We are not Jesse James and the Sundance Kids. We have a city of law enforcement officers, and we're a city of rules and a country of rules. We cannot go back to the days of the Wild Wild West when you had 6 shooters. Bad guys now have AK-47s and they have long guns. When the Constitution was created, it was not created with this type of artillery. And I'm surprised that the judge is not clear on the realities that are playing out on America's cities right now.
And Mayor, finally, I was struck by how quickly you came out and responded today. You're a Democrat, you're mayor of this large city. You're also a former cop, you're a gun owner. What was your gut reaction when this ruling first came?
I stated it over and over again when this ruling was pending that this issue was keeping me up at night. I know what it is to send a message that it is okay carrying a firearm. 2019, we had only 5 firearms found in our schools for the entire year. We're up to 21 within 6 months. It's not only the bad guys that will use this as an opportunity, but people need to realize over a third of those who die from guns are suicide. When a gun is in your home, when a gun is in your business, you're more likely to use it. And it's unfortunate that the Supreme Court did not take this into account. And that is what kept me up at night. And I'm concerned about it now.
Mayor, always grateful for your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.